Hello YouTube, and welcome to a new Unity 3D tutorial. So, last tutorial we made our fuel scoop thing even better. You can see I've just lit up the atmosphere of the fuel scoop zone here with another material, just so we can actually see when we're going to in it, because when we're programming it. And I've decreased the character's health back to where it was normally, so we're not going to die as quick. And let me tell you, when you get into there, you cannot get out fast enough, so it makes it easier for our character. But I'm just going to increase it again, just simply because we need time. But yeah, so what we're going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to make it actually stop your weapons from firing, so you can't fire no more once you're fuel scooping. And then we're also going to shrink the icons down so you've got more space. So it's really easy to do as well. So fuel scoop here, I'm going to open it up, and I'm also going to go and find our fire script. So if I just zoom in on that so you can see it. I'm going to go into our fire script for our space, so I might as well just click our character. Space fire and space fire. So now what we're going to do is actually create a kind of if statement loop kind of thing. So at the moment we've got if input or get mouse down. Okay? Then we're going to press enter and we're going to type if game object.find misc scripts dot get component fuel scoop dot, then we're going to here and we'll get is active here. So if game object component dot is active equals false, then they can fire here. Otherwise they'll not be able to fire at all because the fuel scoop is enabled. And that's pretty much the weapons done. We will not be able to fire without that anymore. So when we leave we'll be able to fire again. So really simple. So I'm going to fly up, test it, come back, and I'll show you when I'm there. So I'm here, and you can see if I fire, it works. But if I tick it on, we can't fire no more. We can't fire anything. Weapons disabled. Turn it off, we can fire. So it works really well, that. Works perfect. Weapons are disabled, your weapons are actually disabled. Obviously, if you're going to have more things that disable it, so like here you could have fuel scoop disabling it, talking to disable it. You could either have a very long if statement or you can rebound the if statements off of each other, whichever way you want to do. And by that I mean going like that, having loads of if statements. It's up to you, or you can have one variable which just disables it. We'll get to that when we get there. So the next thing I want to do is actually resize the buttons on screen. So if I just open it up, you'll see that at the moment we have two buttons, pause and fuel. But eventually I want pause, fuel, cargo, friends, weaponry, armory, inventory. I want buttons all the way down the side kind of thing. But here we've already took up 4 half-size buttons. So I'm going to resize these two buttons to 32 by 32, so then it'll only be like there's one button there. And if you don't know what I mean, you'll see in a minute. So I'm going to go to my GUI scripts and open up on-screen actions. And we'll see here we have it all, it's all fine. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here until we get the sizes. And all I'm going to do is set this to 32 by 32, 32 by 32. So now we've resized them, but at the moment it'll be different. So I'm going to resize, move this fuel button up by 32. So in fact if I keep it like that and click play, I'll be able to show you it in action. So at the moment we've resized it both to 32. So now we should have half size icons. So they're all moved down and it'll look different, so you'll see in a minute. So as you can see, right, the 32 away from the left because it's 64, so we need to move the fuel one up by 32. So if I remove this by 32, like so, and then it should move up in a minute when it decides to load it. So as you can see, they've moved up, so we need to move them both across or add 32 onto the x-axis. So of course they'll be the same, so this will be 92 now, and 92. Perfect. So we move it across, and then we should have 2 small icons across the top. Should be right here. So they're still clickable, they'll still work perfect, we just change the size. And it looks a lot neater, so we can just have more buttons on really. So we have 2 now. Now, we could eventually have an inventory button, like I want to, disable guns. See, really, it works, it's perfect. Can we get dye from this atmosphere? Yes, we can. So what I'm going to do now is actually create an armor script kind of thing. Not armor as in chest plate armor, you have helmet armor, ship upgrades. So I'm going to call it upgrades instead. and it'll make it a lot easier. So I'm going to duplicate entity stats and just call it upgrade, ship upgrade stats. So in here we can talk about the weapons, maybe, I'm not sure, the hull, so how much damage they can take, stuff like that. It's difficult operating with two games at once, that's why it's a bit confusing, but we should be able to do it easily. So we don't need all of these, we can just get rid of the player one and just rename this from entities to just call it ship upgrades, because eventually I want you to be able to upgrade your character. So ship upgrades can be ship upgrade, there we go. So we'll start editing some of these. So name, we'll keep walk speed, running speed, we don't need any of that. We do need an icon for it though, because we need an icon for everything. We don't need any of those. So I'm just going to name some of these in here, and I'll come back in a minute and show you, and I'll explain each one to you. So I'm back and I've done it. So we're getting there slowly, and I've created the class and I've added a name because we need the name of the upgrade. I've created a boolean called unlocked, which is saying whether the character has actually bought it or not, because you don't have to keep buying it every time you get a ship. That's not very good. So I've got a script, and it's a component variable which we've never looked at before. And what a component variable do is store a component type, and then using that, so say we stick the fuel one there, we can drag the fuel script onto it, and then we can simply say when they buy it in the shop, go to the upgrade screen and add that script to the character. Then he has the fuel script. So it saves a lot of time. So make sure it's a component variable if you're going to do that. Physical object, that's game object, so say like you buy a gun and it's on top of your character, you want it there physically, you've got that, so you'll be able to do them too. Buy price, that's the price you buy in shop. Description and icon are self-explanatory. So there they all are. I don't think there's any upgrades, I've not checked it yet, but rename it to ship upgrade, and I'm going to begin writing it. So get rid of all that and we'll type, so this is fuel scoop level 1. Yeah, that'll do. Level 1 because I want them to have multiple levels kind of thing. And while I was just thinking about that, I added one more variable to it called timer, and the reason I'm doing this is because then in there we can specify how much damage the weapons do, or how fast the fuel scoop scoops, stuff like that, how much the hull protects you. So it helps it out, because having to put like armor resistance on a fuel scoop's not going to be very helpful. So yeah, stuff like that. So armor fuel scoop level 1, is it unlocked? It's true, yeah, you've got it by default. The script, we'll just put null for the script. Physical object, null again. Buy price, we'll say 0, it comes default with most ships. Timer is 100, I believe it is. We'll have to go back and have a look at that. Here, 100, yep, timer's 100. And description, this is the basic fuel scoop for all ships. Yeah, that'll do. And then what else do we have? Icon, we put null again. So of course, because that was so much fun doing that, I want to add a level 2. Yeah, we can't use it now, but hey, it'll be funny. Boom. So this is the next gen fuel scoop for all ships. Just like that. Fuel scoop level 2. Is it unlocked? False. Null null. Physical object. No, that's buy price. So what should we set? 1,000. So this is expensive. It's not cheap. But if you collect enough fuel off your basic health, you'll be able to buy it. So 100. This is the timer. So you do it in 75 now. So it's a bit better. Well, not a bit, it's quite much better, but yeah. So if I save it and go back, and I'll see if I get any errors. So I got one error while just doing it, and it's simply because the function was called ship upgrade. I apologise. So yeah, put my scripts, and I'm going to stick it on here. If I can remember where I put it. Ship upgrades, there. Boom. So that works really well. So now what we need to do is actually link it directly to it to find that one. So this is where it gets a bit tedious to whether it, well, the way we're going for it. So basically what we've got to somehow do is, if we're having different upgrades all in this one, so we're going to have, say, 10 fuel scoops, 10 hulls, 10 this, 10 this, 10 this, 10 this, we need to somehow link it directly to it, and the only way I can think of at the top of my head is to use an ID for now, but until we get it better, then it'll work fine. So we're going to go to our fuel scoop in our script there, and just at function start, we're going to type function start. We're going to first add a variable to it. In fact, we don't need a variable. I'm going to set this timer to private first. Yep. And we're going to say timer equals, and we're going to go GameObject.find misc scripts dot get component ship. Oh dear. Ship upgrade stats. There we go. Dot. And then we're going to go inside this ship upgrades array, and we're going to type bracket 0. And then we'll put dot timer after it. So at the moment, that'll set the timer to number 0. Perfect. But what about if we've got number 1, 2, 3 or 5? Kind of thing. So what we're going to do is, you have got to eventually program against having multiple ones, else it'll not work, right? But we're going to create a couple of for loops and a couple of variables. So in function start, so it's only temporary, we're going to type var temp fuel upgrades, and it'll be a integer variable with an array, and we're not going to give it, in fact, and it'll be an int, so we'll just semicolon it. So you're going to wonder why we're creating a temporary fuel upgrades array. So what we're going to do is create a for loop which is going to search every single ship upgrade we've got, every single one, and then we're going to use string.split and determine which one of them say fuel in the first word. So if you need a word what's pretty much the same from all, so you can't have like titanium fuel depot and then one say fuel depot kind of thing, because it'll be a bit weird. So try to keep it all on the same length or same boundaries. If not, create an if statement to search them all. But so that'll store all of them. But we need an integer, a normal one, not an array, to determine how many is being added, and you'll see that in a minute. So if we type var currently added upgrades, and it'll be an integer equal to 0. It's a long integer name, but it's only temporary. And we're going to set the temp fuel upgrades to a maximum in a minute, but not yet. So another thing I'm going to do is create a script variable to store this ship grades here. So I'm going to come down here and type var, and I'll just do it up here as well, because all this is going to be gone as soon as you start it, so it's okay. And then we'll call it stats, and it'll be ship upgrade stats equals, and we'll say GameObject.find blah 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 blah, all that, and we'll call this stats there. So because now we will be typing stats quite a bit, so now it won't be so long. So put the timer down a bit, and I'm going to type here for var I equals 0. It's been a long time since I created a for loop. I is less than, and we'll say stats dot ship upgrades dot length, like so, and then we'll put I++ and sort it out. So now we can add the maximum fuel upgrades here. We're going to grab all this line here, and we're going to paste it after this equals new int ship upgrades length, and we'll put this script above it as well so it doesn't complain. So stats, it'll create an integer at the length of all our ship upgrades, because you never know, you might create 5 fuels, so 0 to 5 is fuel, 0 to 20 is hulls, 20 to 50 is weapons, but then you might want to add another fuel, so you can add it at the end and this script will automatically find it for you. So currently we've got script variable, perfect, we've got an integer array, and then we've got a new integer, perfect. So the next thing we've got to do in this for loop is grab the stats upgrades current one what we're searching, so that, and then we need to string.split its name, so we type .name, and we'll go to the beginning and we'll type var temp string, and we'll say it's a string variable equals stats.ships.name.split, and then we put in brackets. What do we want it split at? Spaces, because we've got spaces, as you can see there, spaces, and then fuel we'll put a square bracket, start at 0. And I just forgot you don't need to put the string. But yeah, so it'll run through, and if it says name, well, it won't say name, but it'll split it up. So now we can say if temp string 0 equals fuel. So if it equals fuel, which it will, then we can say temp fuel upgrades bracket, and then we say currently added upgrades equals I, and then currently added upgrades plus plus. So what this will do is to search everything. So imagine this is all from start. This will set itself to the maximum upgrades we have. Say it's 50 or 500, it'll set itself to that. And then it'll scan down here and say, I will, before carry on, we will have to look away to shorten arrays if they're blank, but I don't know how to do that yet. So it'll come down and create a for loop at the maximum length of the stats thing, and then it'll create a string.split and split each individual upgrade's name up, but it'll only store it once and delete it because it's temporary. But then it'll come down here, because everything in here is literally instantly temporary. Everything out here is only temporary until we call the function start out of it. So it'll come down here, if it equals fuel, which as you can see, two of them do, so we'll test that theory later as well. Then it'll add the I, so what we're currently scanning, so say we're scanning 0, it says fuel, it'll add it to that. So integer 0 will be 0. Then it'll go to number 1, and it'll increase this, so number 1 of currently upgrades, which has been 100, will equal 1. And then say we get to 5, number 2 of this, because we haven't boosted it, will be 5. So it's really, really simple. Now there's only two things left. One, in order for this to scan the fuels, what we currently have, it needs to be enabled. So we're going to type this dot enabled equals false. So by default it'll shut itself off. So we won't have to do it at the beginning of the script. And then here, we need to tell it which one to actually go to. So now we're going to add a for loop. So for var x equals 0, x is less than, and it's just basically all this. And you'll see why in a minute, but make sure you change the I. Great. So this is going to be for, we've already got every single one what says fuel. That works perfectly. But then what we're going to do is scan every single one what we've stored, so I-wise, into here and determine which ones are true. And if they're true, then we can enable them and go out. If they're not, then he doesn't have one. So this can be quite complex with the array what we have to do, but it works fine, so we're okay. So we're going to type in here, if stats.ships upgrades, and then here we're putting an array. So we'd usually put X here right about now, but we're not searching that. We want to search the ones we've already stored. So we need to put temp fuel upgrades. And then that's an array too. So it's an array within an array. And yes, before you comment say an array exception, yes it is. Then we put X in here and then close it. So what this will do is scan, so one array, our upgrades array, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 500, and then it'll only look at the ones we've stored. So 0, 1, 5, 10, 15 if we store it like that. And then it'll get the X of it, so that it'll increase this variable only, not that one, then it'll carry on. It's complex, but it'll work, I think. It's theory. But anyway, ship upgrades dot unlocked, which I believe it is if we go here. Unlocked, yep. And if it equals true, which it hopefully will, one of them at least, then we can set the timer to what we need it to be. So timer equals this long line of stuff, and then we put dot timer. So it'll set itself. Perfect. We also need to close the for loop so it's not going again. So we set x equals stats.length, and it'll stop the variable moving. And then we just turn it off. So that should be it, hopefully. So it's complex and long, but hopefully that should work. So one error we've got, if you look at the thing, is saying name, that is not a name of the ship upgrade, but it is. So if we go to line 13 here, you see we're calling stats and ship upgrades, but we're not specifying which array to scan. So just put an array, well bracket, and put I, and then it'll scan it and it'll work fine. So this is all in the description if you're doing it, because I know it is a bit woo. So we have two of them, works fine, but we need to really test our theory. So what I'm going to do is add 4 to it, just like that. And I'm going to set this one here to level 3. And this is just a test. I'm not going to actually keep these ones, but I'm going to change this one to So now that we've done all that, what we need to do is actually see if it works. And we set the timer on the fuel scoop to public so we can see it. Then what we should be able to do is go in and keep seeing what it actually is. So now that we've made the timer public, we won't actually be able to see it thinking about it because the inspector's weird. So what we'll do instead is on function update, we'll just tell it to print timer. So now that we've put the print timer in, it's really simple to go back and click it. So if we click play, you'll see that it'll start running, but you'll see if we tick different things here, so down here we'll just tick both of these off and tick the first one, and if we click play, you'll see that it prints 100 like we told it to. So if we look, the timer is 100, perfect. So if we click off it and click the second one, it's 75 and click play, you'll see it prints 100 still printing. And it can be like, well, why? But then I figured it out. On your function update, which it's calling it, so it means it's repeating it, it comes down and says, if the player presses F, skip that, if it's active, decrease it, else the timer equals 100. That's not what it needs to equal. We need to make it equal what it should equal, if that makes sense. So if we just take that bit out, and I know it might cause a glitch later on, but if we click play and actually tell it to change it, so if we by default untick this one and say tick these two here like I had it defaultly ticked, so tick these two and untick that, click play, 100. So if we tick both of these here and click play, then when it plays we tick fuel scoop again and you'll see it prints 75 because it's corrected the same one. The only issue is if you stop it and then tell it to, say, go to the first one again, it's not going to budge, it'll only do it once because its function start is when the game starts. So we will have to find a way around that, but it's simply easy to do. So that's all we're going to do in this tutorial. Sorry it's been really long, but it needed to be done. We've managed to make an army system now, so I can get rid of these two crap ones. There we go. So 2 fuel cells, and we'll eventually be able to add more. And all we really have to do is copy this function start, but more pretty much change it to where it needs to be, then it'll work on any. So armor, fuel scoop, anything. So it works really well. I really hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it's been long. Everything's in the description because there is quite a lot today. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time. Please join my Facebook group too.